Oh, hey everyone. I was just playing some awesome guitar there. Uh, you can see there are no strings on this guy. I'm actually just going to CGI them later, and I figure I'll use movie magic to make something really cool out of that. Actually, just kidding. No, I'm converting this guitar into what's called a mandocello, and that's going to be an instrument which has an interesting voice that we will be using in upcoming soundtracks for the Silver Falls games. So I just wanted to check in with you guys and answer a question that I've actually gotten a couple times from a couple people. So for those of you who have messaged, you DM or leave a comment on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. Thanks. I always enjoy hearing from you guys. So people actually wondered, how do I make multiple video games, and how can I work on multiple video games simultaneously and not cancel them, but actually get the games done and finished and published and get them out so that people can play them. So it's kind of a, the question's been asked a couple different ways, but you know, it results in, how do you work on multiple games at the same time? So what's important, first I'll tackle just working on one game and then finishing one game. The difficulty with producing any kind of game, especially if you run your own development studio and you don't have a manager helping to structure the project, and you don't have a project manager to help facilitate a structured and organized approach to getting something done on a schedule, is that you have to manage that schedule yourself. If you've taken a software development course in college, often those come packaged with project management, time management skills, and all those sorts of things. That's why I recommend, you can learn a lot of things on your own and a lot of things online, but it is important to take courses in college, because you'll learn skills there that are very valuable that you'll be able to use for a long time. So when you have decent time management skills, you have a much better chance of making sure your project comes through to fruition. So when I'm working on a game, there are three types of content that you work on when creating a game. And I always keep this in mind. I have to make very clear in my own mind what it is I'm working on. You can't just say, I'm working on my game, here I go, because you will lose track of what you're doing and why you're doing it, and you end up becoming demotivated when you feel like you aren't making enough progress. So as a game developer, and this is a topic that I could go on, and I've sort of been writing a lecture on it that I would like to share in the future in a more structured manner. But I'll just quickly brush over that. So the three things that you need to keep in mind when you're developing a project, especially a game, is that you'll be creating three types of content. The first is structural, the second is supplemental, and the third is corrective. So structural content means you're creating something that the game absolutely relies on in order to function. It is functional, it's structural, it makes up the structure of the project. So, for example, creating the battle system for a game where you're programming the actual logic of, okay, a character runs around, okay, a character can pick up an item, okay, this is the inventory system, okay, and now the character is able to shoot out a fireball, the character is able to learn magic spells. That's structural. It is integral. Whether or not you have one magic spell that character can learn or 50 magic spells, that has nothing to do with the structure. So that's structural. That stuff is often very exciting because you can see that you're creating something, and you can visually see that you're making a lot of progress, what feels like very quickly. What's even more exciting than that, once you have your structural stuff, is then you can create your supplemental. So say you have created your battle system and you've created your structural stuff where your character can learn magic. Supplemental means you're creating content to fill in that gap and to make the game feel like it has content in it. So I could make 70 different magic spells. I have Fireball, Water Ball, Lightning Ball, Love Ball, Goo Ball, Earth Ball, Air Ball, and that is supplemental. So it is not structural, it is not required for the game to function, but it exists as content in the game to make it feel like there's a lot of bulk to it. There's actual things in the game to play. But the problem with um, supplemental content is you can keep working on that, and it feels like you're making a lot of stuff, but you end up stepping back at the end of the day and feeling that it wasn't enough. You haven't done enough. And that's because it contributes to the end product, but not in a huge way in terms of a developer. For example, the past 3 weeks I have just been writing dialogue for my characters in our upcoming game, Campfire Stories, which will be on the Nintendo Switch. And when I first started, it feels great, and that's supplemental as I'm creating dialogues. There's probably around 40 or 50 characters that have dialogue. And it feels great at first because you're thinking, yeah, look at all this cool stuff. But if you keep doing only supplemental stuff, it drags and it is very samey, and your brain tends to go numb. So I've discussed two things. I've discussed structural and supplemental. I'm not sure if I brought up the weaknesses of structural. Structural is the hardest thing to do because you have to create that whole system, which means you have to use engineering and architecture skills to plan out how all of these different structures, all of these game mechanics will come together. You need to think it up, you need to plan it out, then you need to actually do it. And when you do it, and then you find that it's not actually working, that's when the third type of content comes in, and that is corrective, which means you now need to go through your game and you need to figure out what doesn't work and why isn't it working, where are the bugs, what's causing the logic to fail. And corrective is the most demoralizing and upsetting stage, because then it mostly feels like you're wasting time that you could have done, or you could have spent creating things. So corrective is not great from a mental standpoint, because you have to understand, all right, I have to stop doing the structural, I have to stop doing the supplemental, I have to do corrective now, because for some reason my character is supposed to learn this spell at level 50 and they aren't learning anything. What's happening? I'm supposed to bring up the menu and cast the fireball, nothing's happening. So corrective can take a long time. And what's very important to understand with game development is, if you're working on that in a small team, or especially by yourself, as a lot of people work solo, switching gears between those three different types of content is extremely difficult. So if you think, I'm going to do corrective work a little bit, then I'll do structural work a little bit after today, and then in a couple late hours in the evening, I'll do some supplemental. Hate to tell you this, that is not efficient work. Your brain is going to get jammed up and it's going to have a hard time switching gears, which means you need to allocate blocks or chunks of work so that one day or a couple of days, maybe 2 days, you say, I'm going to do structural work. I need to finish programming the heads-up display. I need to finish my item menu. And that can be quite exhausting because you're spending different kinds of energy mentally for doing that stuff. So the way that I work on one project, let's say I'm working on Campfire Stories, is I'll set aside maybe 2 or 3 days and say, this is structural work. I need to program parts of the battle system. I need to program the menus. And I know that at a particular point, my soul is just going to get bored of doing that work. And it is quite exhausting. So then I know I can switch gears and wait for the next day. I sleep on it. I have a good rest. And then I work on supplemental work for a day or two. And I think, okay, great. I can work on my database. I can add in my weapons, my armor, my abilities. You work on that for a day, and generally you can do that and not get bored, because then it changes what you're doing. That feels refreshing, because then it feels like you're not doing the exact same thing again and again. It removes some of the grind, and it helps you feel like you are making progress. And corrective generally comes in when you're testing, and then you find things are not working quite right. It's usually alternating between structural and supplemental. If you keep switching back and forth, you can build up a good pace, and you sort of build up energy inside of you. You got to build up your stamina, because at some point you will have to do corrective work, and that's when you need your stamina. And if you try to tackle your corrective work and you don't have that stamina built up, that is when you will lose interest in your project. You'll become exhausted, you'll be sick of it, and you won't even want to look at that project anymore. So that is why I identify the 3 types of content you'll be working on for your games. And to switch things up further, I generally have multiple projects because I know that I can work on a particular project for a certain amount of time before it starts to wear down on me mentally. And I see the exact same thing again and again. I'm working on the exact same thing again and again. So I generally pick 2 or 3 projects that are very different from each other. The planning stages on games are very fun. So I usually wait until I'm in the very dead middle of active development of a project, and then I'll start the planning on another project, because the planning project for me is documentation. It's sitting down. You can sit at the beach. You can go for a hike up in the mountains, and you can sit at a rocky outcrop, and you can have your notebook or your phone, and you can take your notes there, and you can plan out your next project. That sort of stuff is the work that will energize you, and it makes you excited for working on a project. So say, for example, I've been working on White, Its Side, Its Umbra, Campfire Stories. I've been working on the update for Undertakers, and also Guardians and Metal Exterminators. So I can feel when I'm getting exhausted of a project. I'll switch to another project, and I will suddenly have this excitement and this energy inside of me, because now I think, oh, wow, this project is so different. It's refreshing. It's fun. And they say that absence makes the heart grow fonder, which I think is quite true for these sort of projects. Because if I'm working on a different project for a couple days, in the back of my mind, I'll start thinking, oh, I really miss working on Campfire Stories now. I really would like to sort of get back to that now, because now I'm working on this task, and my brain's thinking, oh, I was going really well on that. I feel refreshed. I could go back to it. And generally, that is how I work on projects. That's what stops me from getting extremely worn out on projects. And the only project that I really worked on solo without the benefit of the other projects was 3 Down Stars, and that's mostly because Unity 3DS was so broken, I actually couldn't afford to work on other projects. So anyway, I'm not sure how long this video has gone. I don't know if I bored you to sleep, but if that was interesting at all, then I'm glad, and I hope that that was kind of interesting for you. I'm going to CGI in some strings and some really cool music here. So if you have any other questions you'd like me to answer, go ahead. You can DM, you can leave a comment or anything. So I try to get to your comments on YouTube, but I'm so busy with development that sometimes it takes me a couple weeks. But I do appreciate that you comment on these videos, and I really do make an effort to get back to you, so I appreciate that. Please take care of yourselves. Be happy, be healthy, and be safe. And hopefully I'll have Campfire Stories done, and then I can get that out to everyone. And I've got 2 chapters of Heavy Shadow that will be coming in time for Halloween, so I hope you guys look forward to that. So I really appreciate you for supporting the series. I appreciate you sticking around, and I really can't wait to get my next games out to you all, so we can chat about it and have fun with the upcoming games. Okay, we will see you around.